West Virginia defensive coordinator Zack Ally did not mince words today on Three Guys Before the Game. West Virginia is a sleeping giant in college football, and he believes that very much.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I believe that West Virginia is a sleeping giant in college football. The support, the people, they love it and it matters. And it's just I really felt like it was just going to be the right guy had to come back to get the energy and get the people involved. And we've got all the tools we need to be successful.
Straight from the horse's mouth, you hear it. West Virginia defensive coordinator Zack Ally. If I may have said head coach in the opening, I didn't mean to. Got excited. What can I say? But I was sitting here. I had just woken up from a nap. I haven't been sleeping well lately, and so I woke up at 3:00 today. But as you guys know, I did like 8-9 videos over the last 2 days, and I literally wasn't sleeping. And my doctor told me I needed to sleep, so. I'm just so obsessed with doing good at this. I can't help it, guys. So, anyways, I think less is more sometimes, and I need to realize that. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is going to be brought to you by GameTime. When it comes to GameTime, right now, if you download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. But you can only do it if you head to GameTime.com, guys, and make sure you do that. It's a good site. Thank you for being in the chat, Raven, and others, and others, Eric, Raven, Sean. Thank you for being in the chat, guys. Discord link is in the chat if you want to be a part of the conversation. I do plan to be more involved over there on Discord. It's been a little bit less here lately because it's the off season, but it's going to pick up, and I'll start posting intel back in there and things. I've been so busy with all this, so I think I want to go. So here's what I did. I tracked the entire interview. I looked into things. I've interviewed players. I probably, like I said, I woke up at 3, watched this, and then started calling people that I knew I could get answers from right away about this. And I just want to find out, like, okay, is this lip service or does he believe it? Is it a little bit of both? What do people think that are there? And who are these people that he speaks of on the defensive line and that kind of thing like that, because he had a lot to say in this interview. And I've condensed it for you guys to let you hear the best parts of the interview and give you my takes on them. So that's what this is. We're going to be looking at that today. Appreciate you guys for joining in. Let's get to it, man. So Zack Ally in an interview with Three Guys Before the Game, wish it was Locked On West Virginia, today, had a lot of cool things to say, honestly, things that I didn't expect him to say. I know he's this fiery kind of guy. He's very intense. Seems like a very nice person, by the way. Like, I genuinely get a feeling from him like he's got a good heart. One of those kind of guys. He's a lot like myself in some ways, I think. Very generous person. And I know it sounds a little bad for me to call myself nice and generous, but like I really do try to be those things in life, And anybody that's ever talked to me outside of the show or deals with me knows that I'm very nice. I try to be. So, anyways, I can relate to that, because I think I also have an aggressive nature about myself and have shown that in my past. So there's some things about Zack that I can relate to. And I'll be honest, the sleeping giant thing is it's past due, really. I think we thought it was happening in 2010-ish, 12, when Gino was here. I thought we were on the cusp of that too at times with Dana. I mean, at the time, we all thought Dana was great, right? We just won an Orange Bowl, which is so crazy because the genesis of him going to Clemson was that Orange Bowl loss. He talks about that in the interview. I'm focusing on the sleeping giant thing, but there was a lot more to it. So he's not messing around, right? He's calling West Virginia a sleeping giant. It's a pretty bold flex, but I'm here for it. I think he sees the passion of Mountaineer Nation. We're all time, we're top 20 all time in wins. The winningest team that's never won the national championship. We all know that. In a Big 12 that's wide open. Texas and Oklahoma have moved on. And I don't think this is coach speak. I think this is a battle cry, in my opinion. And I think, the fact that his fiance had already been telling him about Morgantown, different things, was a big part of the reason for his move. But if you think about this logically, how many guys moved from Oklahoma to Morgantown? Not very many, right? So whether West Virginia is actually a sleeping giant or not is up for debate. But do I believe that Zack Ally believes it is? And do I believe that he believes that Rich Rodriguez is the guy to do it? I absolutely do, because actions speak louder than words. Flat out. He left Oklahoma. He came to West Virginia. The money was very similar. It wasn't like it was inordinately a lot more than what he was going to get at Oklahoma, at what most people would consider to be a better job and maybe have a more chance to be successful. Even in a tougher conference, you're still going to get elite athletes at Oklahoma. And he said it himself. It's about personnel, not scheme. So if that's the case, why move to West Virginia? Rich Rodriguez. It all comes back to Rich Rodriguez, guys. Why do you think these elite people support Rich Rodriguez? People that are elite in their area of life. Pat McAfee is at this point in time, the most elite at all. Name anybody you want. You want to name Shannon Sharp? You want to name Skip Bayless, who I'm a fan of. I know not everybody loves Skip. You want to name Colin Cowherd? Sure. You want to name Scott Van Pelt? Sure. You can name these guys. You want to name Mad Dog? You want to name Stephen A? Pat McAfee is the best in his field. And there's a reason for that. It's because he's fiery. He's got work ethic. He's from West goddamn Virginia, right? And a lot of these things are very important to us. So I'll say this too. When you look at a guy like Ken Kendrick, billionaire, right? Successful, owns the Diamondbacks. Who do they support? They support Rich Rodriguez. Why are all these ultra successful people supporting Rich Rodriguez to this point? It's not because he's just a football coach. There has to be more to it. It's because there is more to it. Why is one of the youngest defensive coordinators in America at Oklahoma choosing to leave Oklahoma to come to West Virginia? Is it because Brent Venables is on the hot seat? Possibly. There could be a little bit of that. Sure, I'll give you that. But is he still in a position? Does his career hurt over it? I wouldn't say that. He was only there 1 year. And I think that Zack Ally believes in himself. So I'm not shocked that he made the move. Now, he did kind of touch on the feelings of Venables, and he didn't want to speak for him, but he basically said, probably did hurt him a little bit that he moved from Oklahoma to West Virginia, being that he was a protege of his, and all that. But also, I think, Hoppy did nail it a little bit when he said, listen, he's going to have his own signature name, right, on this defense and in some control. I think there's a little bit of that too, but still, it's not like being attached to Venables was hurting Zack Ally. I mean, he got the Oklahoma job. That's almost the pinnacle. You in college football, there are some people that would say you can't do better. I mean, is the Alabama defensive coordinator job or the Georgia or Ohio State defensive coordinator job that much better or worse than Oklahoma's? Not really. It's in that same stratosphere. They're all blue bloods. So to go from there to a place like West Virginia, to me, says a lot about Rich Rodriguez. If Neil Brown was there and offered him $2 million, do you think he comes? I don't. I don't. So, and there are others. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on and on about the people that continue to support Rich Rodriguez. And why is that? Well, like we said, absolutely. Sleeping giant. It's because he's had us on the cusp before. Whenever I interview people or whenever people interview me and ask me, why does Rich Rodriguez keep talking about this national championship thing? It just happened. You guys seen it yesterday with Brian Smith from Locked On Portal. He asked me, Rich Rodriguez said, what? In this day and age on Urban Meyer, with Urban Meyer, a national championship, like he got a hold of me over it. People are curious about this. People want to know why Rich Rodriguez is talking about national championship at West Virginia, almost like it's a foul term. You shouldn't say it. It shouldn't be allowed. When Arizona State was in the playoff last year, when TCU made it all the way to the national championship game, it can absolutely be done. Huge contrast between Rich Rod and Venables. You know, his love for working with Rich Rod is definitely infectious. And I think, you know, he said himself, Venables was super hands-on with Oklahoma's defense and probably almost too controlling. That's me saying that. While Rich Rod gives him more freedom to cook. And I think that's huge. You got to let him cook, man. And it means Ally's got the keys to unleash his vision at West Virginia. Unlike his time at Oklahoma, I think, you know, where the Sooners struggled on offense, I mean, they were 6-7 last year, and it wasn't because of the defense. They had a top 50 defense in every category almost. Rich Rod's trust could be the secret sauce to this sleeping giant working. You literally got an elite OC, an elite DC, and an elite, close to an elite head coach. I don't know where you put Rich Rod because he's had varying levels of success, but at West Virginia, he's been nothing but elite. So let's go to break. We'll come right back, and what I want to do is touch on a couple other things that Zack Ally said here, but I also want to talk about some of the players that were mentioned. There were only a couple, but I'm going to fill in the blanks for you. Stick around. This is Locked On West Virginia. And this episode of Locked On West Virginia is going to be brought to you by GameTime. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their gourds. It's kind of the atmosphere that you must experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. And if you want in, GameTime makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop if you get closer to tip-off. And if you want killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, or no surprise fees at checkout, GameTime is the game changer you're looking for. I was actually on the app recently looking for tickets for the Pitt game. And listen, some of those deals were offering pretty good percentages off in sections. I love that I can see my exact seat that I want in the app before I buy. And I also love that I know exactly how much it's going to cost before I check out. You can do the same. If you take the guesswork out of buying tickets, you can use GameTime. All you have to do is download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms are going to apply for that. You'll have to read those, but create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your purchase today, and download the GameTime app for last-minute tickets at the lowest prices, guaranteed, and ask yourself the question of questions. What time is it? It's game time. And we run into segment 2. Let's crack a do and talk about Zack Ally, man. I love this guy. Zack Ally is right up my alley for multiple reasons, man. And it's no surprise that I think that he is such an intense guy. And why the reason he and Coach Venables worked so well together for a long time, I think that if you go look it up, people will say they're very similar coaches. I can see that now. Let's talk about Zack Ally's defensive philosophy. You know, he talks about aggression, being multiple, being player first. His elevator pitch is straight up fire. He's talking this very multiple scheme. His top 5% blitz percentage, very important to him, which they were the last couple of years at Oklahoma and other places. And a focus on points possession as the ultimate metric. This ain't your grandpa's defense, man. This is whether it's cover 3, cover 4, cover 1, cover 2. You want to go man, you want to go zone, you want to go whatever you want to run. He's got answers. And it's all about players over plays. The personnel over scheme mindset. Plus, never running out of ammo. And look, if you want to talk Boise State versus BYU, he referenced it. Zach Wilson, they were lighting people up that year at BYU, ninth in the country. They ran every single thing they had and ran out by halftime. Didn't have anything else to call. He said, you know what? When I get my own gig, that's not going to be me. And so at West Virginia, that's not going to be him. That means they're going to have a ton of calls, ton of plays, a ton of ways to guard people. That means we're not going to have to play zone because we can't play man like we did in the past with Jordan Leslie. It tells me our scheme mindset, our players over scheme mindset, never running out of ammo. I think our D is going to be relentless. And then he talked about the D line. He said, listen, Ally says it's going to be good, I really believe that. And I already picturing sacks on sacks on sacks in 2025. I just don't know who from, but I checked around about that. We'll get to there in a minute. I think he mentioned how he and Venables are cut from the same cloth, both very aggressive by nature. I mentioned that already. That Clemson and Venables vibe is coming to Morgantown. I'm hyped to see it, man. I really am. I think he's carving his own path, though. But I think he also is learning from Venables' hands-on style and adapted to Rich Rod's looser leash, who he said it himself. Rich Rod has opinions, but he's not hands-on with it. And I think it's like he's winning the best of both worlds here to build a defense that's going to be making some Big 12 quarterbacks sweat, man. That's what I believe. He mentioned some life lessons, too, during this interview, which I want to touch on really quick before we get to the players. Story hit kind of deep, he got hospitalized with COVID. That's a wake-up call, and he had to feed players at Louisiana Monroe, guys, which helped shift his mindset on NIL. At Louisiana, at Clemson, at West Virginia, at Oklahoma, players don't have to worry about food. They can get as much food as they want. At Louisiana Monroe, during the NIL era, mind you, those kids couldn't even eat in the mornings. Didn't have enough money after rent. Is that fair? Because that's the world of college football is created. We've got 22, 21, 20, 19, 18-year-old kids. Some of them coming from bad home environments anyway that have to wake up with no food. Yeah, that's not cool. And I can totally understand why it shifted his mindset on NIL. How could you not be for the players getting paid after that? There's no way. It breaks my heart that there are players in college that, and I get it. They're not living third world country status. I'm not saying that. And I get we have other world problems that are greater than this. But in this realm of college sports, in this realm that we're talking about now, that's kind of almost as bad as it can get. Like players not having food. How's a player supposed to get better? How's a player supposed to gain weight? That's a coach who gets it. And he talked about waking up and feeding these players something different every morning so he could make sure they had breakfast. Fix yourself, college football. It's not cool, man. And he's all about that earned success, not handouts. And I think he talked about that, with how we've got this structure set up. NFL model, they call it. No handouts. And that's the kind of culture we need at West Virginia. Absolutely. We've got too much of that pay-to-play shit going on. And I think it shows that he's not just scheming X's and O's here. It's more than that. Even in this era, you can build men. His core philosophy, how do you scheme up someone who's actively scheming against you? Straight up chess, not checkers. This guy's a thinker and a fighter, and I love it. There's work to do. He mentioned that. And the future may not be bright. And Ally's real about the grind, man. There's a lot of work still yet to do at West Virginia. But the honesty for me here, paired with the competence in the defensive line, the new aggressive scheme, the Rich Rod, the multiple things that he's talked about being multiple, has me believing we're on the cusp of something special here, guys. This ain't a rebuild. It's a reawakening. I really believe that. Ally can mold this defense into a top-tier unit. The Big 12 better be watching out because I think even the ACC and the SEC might take notice if this turns into what we all think it may be able to turn into. Mountaineer Nation, look, Zack Ally has got me ready to run for a wall for West Virginia sports. What about you, man? Like the video, subscribe if you're not you subscribed, if you're new around here, if you love the Mountaineers like I love the Mountaineers, you'll do that. And what do you think? Can he awake this sleeping giant? Can he be a part of this reawakening? Well, drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button and let me know. And if you're not subscribed to Locked On West Virginia for Mountaineer, we got daily heat coming here 7 days a week. It's something we talk about. Let's keep the faith and be loud for 2025, man. I'm excited. I am so excited. So let's go to break. On the other side, what we'll do is we'll talk about some players, some guys that could definitely help make this impact. Stick around. All right, guys, we are back here in Locked On West Virginia. Let's talk about some players. I think when you look at it from a personnel perspective, there's a few guys that I want to talk about. I'll start with Jamori Robinson because he's the most obvious choice, but also because he's the most obvious choice. You know, he's an NFL player. He could have went to the NFL this year. He chose to stay in college, probably with a financial decision too there, which is fine. We reap the benefits. If he can turn into what we think he can be, I think we'll be in great shape. And that'll be a big piece to this. Another guy, Eddie Kelly, we talked about him on the at defensive end. We need him to be what he was at Missouri and maybe a little bit more. So Eddie Kelly's a guy we're all going to be relying on to be good. Hammond Russell, we can't leave out Hammond Russell. We can't leave out Adam Tomczyk a little bit here too. I think Tomczyk's got a chance to make an impact along with Asani Redwood. Those are guys that we need rotating at defensive end to play really well for us. Defensive tackle, literally every guy in that room has to perform. From Eddie Vesterinen, who's coming off a really tough injury that left him out last year, which is great for this year. We get him back, who was a very good player. I could see him maybe even being like a Chris Neal of this era. If you're not remember, Chris Neal was on that 2010 defense with Castile that was so vaunted and good. It was a top 10 defense for sure. I think it may be top 15. Elijah Simmons, the transfer in from JUCO, who we've looked at, very good player. Corey McIntyre must stay healthy, has to stay healthy. If he can, I think he could be an all Big 12 player. And Nate Gabriel, who's shown flashes last year of being very good. So if you're unsure why I'm talking about the defensive line, Zack Ally mentioned the D-line during his interview on Three Guys. So I just want to say, like, in my opinion, those are the guys. And then if you want to consider like edge guys part of the D-line, then you have to get into, obviously Braden Siders, I think, Marshawn Oxley, Keenan Eck, and Devin Grant are all four guys, and Curtis Jones as well. I think he'll play some bandit. Those guys will all have to perform. I believe I've heard a lot of good things about Curtis Jones, but I think Siders will be the leader in that room along with maybe Grant. I don't know. And I really don't have a great feel for it yet. I need more. I told you guys I'd ask a few players about some players. So I'm going to go there now. The guy that came up a lot today, and I'd ask position by position room because, some guy like on the offensive line, some guys don't know how the safety room looks. They don't even really interact with those guys, on the field. So it's like, it would be as much a personal opinion as I have. I mean, maybe you see him make a play here and there, but it's like, I'm not going against that guy every day, right? Well, I asked somebody that is a very good player, that's been here since the spring. Who is it that is really going to make an impact? Like, is there somebody that you can say with certainty? And it was like over and over and over and over and over again, we hear Jamori Robinson's name. So, I mean, even though that's such an obvious one for y'all to hear, I just want to reinforce it. Like, I think we can really expect huge things from Jamori Robinson this year, and I'm talking huge. You know, he's been at UTSA where he's been facing double teams, he's getting chipped. He's been like, you know, if we can just have anything to balance the other side and he gets one-on-one matchups, we're going to have a guy that's going to have 10 plus sacks for us this year at the big easily. So I think he's really tough to plan for. And it's only going to help our pass defense. So, and then Braden Siders was a name that came up. Said he had an incredible spring, one guy did. Said he's very tough. He has a ton of different moves, very strong, got a great bull rush. So that's a name. Another name people brought up just on defense in general was Chase Wilson. I heard his name a couple times. Because some of the three of the guys had, opinions about multiple position rooms. So I'll go off of that, and Chase Wilson was a name that I've heard a lot about, and the guy that I'm really happy to hear because I think we need that linebacker leader. Absolutely. And then I'll tell you what, Jordan Scruggs was the name I heard. So maybe that's somebody, I mean, we know that he was highly rated on as far as like portal rankings go and stuff, but like we just haven't. It's frustrating because we haven't heard the coaches talk about these players very much. So I'm having to rely on these. They're not covert, but these interviews where I can't even talk about who's talking about them because nobody's really supposed to be talking about anybody. It's kind of crazy, man. All right, guys. I think that's it. I'm going to end the stream a little early today. I've got a couple things I have to go do, but I want to appreciate you guys for being here. This was a fun one for me to do. I had fun kind of diving into some of the things he said, reading between the lines a little bit, put my own spin on it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you share the video out, please. Like the video if you get a chance to. And I'll be back this evening to do another video, I'm sure. I've got a goal of doing at least 2 videos a day for the rest of the month at least, and probably beyond. So it's the off season, and I want to prove that just because it's the off season doesn't mean we can't talk about West Virginia every day. All right, guys, I got to run, but I will see you guys on the next one. Make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you then. This episode's over, and I'm out.